Hello and welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and today we are joined by Adele Johnston. Hi, Adele.
Hey, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Really good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. So, if you could just do us a little intro about who you are, what you do, and just give us an idea of what goes on in your world.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Adele Johnston, otherwise known as the Menopause Coach over social media and different platforms. If you want to check out anything that I'm doing there, you can just pop into Google Adele Johnston, the Menopause Coach, and it will come up with all the platforms that I'm active on, like TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We've got a bit for everyone there. I also run a really successful podcast called The Menopause Coach. And in that podcast, we literally talk about the black and white of everything with women's health, happiness, and basically around raising your vibrational confidence levels. So definitely check that out if you would like to. It's not all about menopause, it's about the key elements of how we can run a really happy, successful life.
Oh, amazing. And it all links, doesn't it? Like it's really hard to do that if you're someone struggling during the menopause or all the other health kind of things that we have to get through as women in our lives. Amazing. So I know, because I've spoken with you before, we've worked together before, but I know that there is a kind of reason why you are, specifically a menopause coach. So would you just talk us through your journey, kind of like from the start? So as a young child, and then like sort of what's been your journey so far?
Yeah, so my journey to where I am now, I will be 40 this August.
Oh, big poll
I
you're gonna do for your
know, big
birthday.
year, completely big year. We're actually we've got quite a lot. So I live for living, okay? And I
Yes.
know that that's a bit of a cliche because people are like, "Oh, she's one of those." But I really live for experiencing life.
Yes.
So, the designer handbags and shoes are not my thing,
No, agree.
but I love to go out and experience countries, cultures, foods, all of the things, and just get a bit crazy, go back into my youth and be like, yeah, I'm going to jump off that rock into the sea.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I
Amazing.
might even throw the boat out this year, Ellen, go for a tattoo, my very first tattoo on my 40th year. You never know.
I absolutely think you should do it. Don't talk to me about tattoos because I will encourage you to get too many. I have too many. But that
Yeah.
is an amazing idea. I love
I
that.
know, right? So we're just gonna live at large and just enjoy it. So we've got a few different trips booked up, and my husband and I, well, we've got Florida with the kids.
Oh.
I know I'm a bit of a Mickey Mouse fan, and I don't feel ashamed for admitting that.
Oh.
And then Sean and I, my husband and I, we're going to head off to New York at the end of the year because there's an amazing opportunity to bring business into it as well. So being invited to do a women's wellness event over in New York
Oh,
and
wow.
thought, amazing. I've always wanted to see the tree at Christmas time. So yeah,
Oh.
we've got a lot planned. So it's going to be an amazing year.
That will be absolutely amazing. I love New York. I went when it was Thanksgiving, like about 5, 6 years ago, and it was so magical.
Yeah, I
Loved
bet,
it.
right? I've
Yeah.
been, but it's been July was the first year that we went, and then we went back a few years later in the June. So I've seen it and felt it in the heightest of the summer, but never in the winter. So I'm super excited for
Mm.
that.
Amazing. So that's coming up. So yeah, so just go back. So what you're 40 this year, and
40 this year.
what's happened up to date?
So I would say then, childhood wise, there's not much I suppose that I can bring into that other than had a very, very happy childhood, and actually part of the influence then that you could say, because we know that our guardian or parental influence has a really big impact on who we then become in our adult years and
Mm.
how we then face into life and live it. And I grew up then with my brother, my younger brother, my mum, and my dad. There was the four of us.
Oh.
And my mum was a female bodybuilder, which was really not that heard of when, you think about bodybuilders back then, it was mostly men. So she was a huge inspiration and an influence around the fact that women could actually be powerful. And this is the feminist in me,
Mm.
and be absolutely way more powerful than what our males in our life could be. And I witnessed her going through really challenging times. She actually divorced my dad when I was 13, which was a
Okay.
really big thing to do. And again, that wasn't that common, that husbands and wives were getting divorced when that was, when that happened basically at that time. So yeah, mum was a real big kind of powerhouse female. She competed in her bodybuilding and won Miss Scotland. She placed third in Britain. And it was just insane to watch her go through her journey. I used to go to the gym and train with her. So from 11 years old, I was in a really kind of what we would call like grassroots style gym. Yeah, there was no windows. In the winter, there was ice on all the bars. It was just not like modern gyms today.
I can imagine freezing. You have to wear like 5 layers when you go in.
Exactly. And gloves. And I remember one of the evenings was pose down night. And all the guys and the girls would strip down into their tiny little, G-string like trousers, pants and things to do their posing. So I was just exposed to that from a really young age, and I started to get really fascinated with just the human form and the human body, and how we could actually do a lot with it. It's a proper gift. So that had a big influence for sure, because not only then did my brother go on to be a chef, I went on to become a nutritionist. So there's been that influence in where we are. And as we kind of fast forward, I was the first in my family to go to university, and I traveled for a bit with that, which gave me the culture and world bug of experiencing life. And then I would say that from there, I started to kind of hunker down a bit into a corporate career. It's that whole thing of this is just what you do, right? You go to uni, you get the job, you climb the career ladder. And as a female, you eventually want to try and blast through that glass ceiling. So that was always my goal, was to be the rebel female, break down the glass ceiling and sit on the board of some big organization. That was it. That was my goals. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see like what happens later. Like, A, did it happen, and B, if and when, how did you feel? But anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So I navigated through that stage of life. I was always the kind of confident young, corporate woman that would be like, yes, I'll take that project on. Yes, I'll do that thing. And I actually worked for a really large blue chip organization called, Sky Television. So for us in the UK, we know them as the kind of big privately owned TV giant. And I worked with the CEO and the board of directors and executives that sat within there. So, I was kind of at that level and working to that level, which was amazing. And then lots changed. So I actually got made redundant from that role. That was in 2016. And that was my first opportunity. Now, this is quite sad to say it, but this was the first opportunity that I'd ever had to step back from, crazy ass life. I'd had my twin girls in 2010. So they were just coming up for being 6 when I got made redundant. And I would say that from there was this huge big shift in who I was at that point. I had a little bit, because it was a payout, I'd been there for 13 years. I had a bit of money sat in the bank, and I just remember driving along this beautiful country road where I live, the windows down, music on, sun shining, and just thinking, oh my God, like, is this what it's like to actually feel happy? Right? I'd never felt that before. It was almost like this massive surge of serotonin just completely took over my entire body, and I was vibrating from head to toe driving along this road.
That freedom.
Yes. And that was it for me then. I always used to think, when people would say, what does life mean to you? What do you want from life? I used to be like, I don't know. How do you answer that question? I've been to uni, I've got the job. But actually, I didn't have the happiness and I didn't have the freedom. So that was initially that whole awakening moment for me, where I just thought, this is it. This is what I have to have more of. I have to experience more of this.
Yeah.
And it was kind of coming off that corporate saddle for a while that gave me that insight that actually Monday through Friday, I would show up to work. And then sometimes Friday night, still be doing the work. And then Sunday evening, I'd still be doing the work, because I'd be checking the calendar and seeing what's coming up. So this is a bit of a sad point, but it's really poignant actually, because I think a lot of mums will resonate. But I used to nickname myself the bath bottle bed mum, because I would pick the girls up from nursery, the private nursery that we put them into.
Yeah.
Which cost the same as what I was getting paid every month for working. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's that whole I'm working to pay for them to be in childcare. And then, yeah, they would get home, they would be tired, I would be tired, I'd get them bathed, Sean and I would get them fed, and we would just put them in their jammies and put them to bed. And that was 5 days a week. And it makes me so sad now to think that there was like a good year of that where it was just bath bottle bed. And live for the weekend where you're then exhausted. So I knew at that point that's not what I wanted. And this does get happier, I promise you. So as we started to kind of navigate through that time, I got a taste for what freedom and kind of having a bit of money in the bank felt like. And I actually opened my very first business then.
In 2016.
2017.
17, yeah.
Yeah. And it was A Game Lifestyle, which was my nutrition coaching. And I coached people, you know, just anybody. I worked with males who were boxers. I worked with a lot of females who wanted fat loss. I worked with women who really just needed to understand their bodies better. And again, I think that that's the rite of passage point where I had to figure out, well, who was I as this coach? Who did I like working with? Who did I get really lit up from supporting? I then had an apparel brand that was part of that called A Game Apparel. And it was brilliant. It was going really, really well. But what I recognized was it wasn't a scalable business, and it wasn't going to give me the freedom I needed, because I'd basically swapped the corporate office for consistently just having to pack all this clothing stuff, which was, we give gratitude for the orders, and post out. So I was that person at the post office everybody hated because she had this massive bag of stuff. Yeah. And I just thought, I just don't see myself having this physical product business that relies on me having to then pack all the orders and get out. So I didn't shut it down as such. I just basically made none of the apparel line available and said it was all sold out. Still got some of it in my garage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just kind of did that whole ostrich moment of, this is just not what I want, so
stop it.
switch that off and walk away. Yeah,
That's it. So if something doesn't feel aligned though, sometimes that is the option. Don't dwell too much, just right, that's it, done.
Exactly. It was almost an emotional detachment from it to then say, look, I've not failed at it. I've learned a lot from it. It's still my brand. I'd trademarked it. And, you know, I've got other brands that get in touch now to say, look, could we use the logo? We'll pay your percentage of what we sell. So, you know, all these things normally bring additional benefits that can come and opportunities that can come. So that got me to that point. I actually then went into private consultancy for a while because we needed money. Yeah, it was that whole point of, right, I'm going to have to go back to doing what I built up my reputation for in corporate. And I consulted. So I consulted for BBC Scotland for a while. And then I went back into corporate. And this is the massive like changing point. So being my own boss as a consultant was amazing. But then an opportunity came along for me to be employed again. And the stability of employment felt needed at that time. Okay, young family, my husband's job was a bit rocky, and we just thought, you know what, it'd be absolutely ridiculous of me not to go for this opportunity. So I went for it, I got the opportunity, and I was employed again. And I remember that transition of going back into employment was really difficult.
Oh, I can imagine.
Right? Yeah. Like walking through the security doors. I was in banking at this point now, so financial services. Sitting in the open plan office. Now, if there was ever a moment in my life when I realized I'm not meant to be here doing this, it was this moment.
Yeah.
So I'd maybe been there for good few weeks. We'll say a month at least.
Yeah.
Open plan office. And everybody was just sat at their desks, tinkering away on the keyboard. You could just hear like the tinkering of fingers on the keyboards, the clicking of like the mice, and then a little bit of chatter, but not an awful lot. And I just remember lifting my head, looking around the room. It was a huge room. There must have been about 80 people on this floor, and thinking, I'm not meant to be here. Like, this is not life. Look at them all. They're like, and I wrote about this in my co-authored book, My Dad Thinks I'm a Fairy. And it states in there, I say, like monkeys. I know this sounds awful, but it's like little monkeys that are basically getting rewarded for things if they do the thing. And I just thought, I am not one of these people. I'm not a machine that just sits here and does this. I've got so much more purpose path to fulfill that this is not allowing me to do. I just wanted to grab my bag and go, and I couldn't because we needed the money.
Yeah, and once that seed is planted, you can't ignore it, can you? Like, once you've actually had that realization of like, okay, maybe this isn't right, I felt like it's so hard to ignore that.
100% it was. It was almost like, right, this was the tough part, because at that time I was not as emotionally intelligent as I am now. I've worked really hard for years on my own emotions, on my energy levels, and my what we would refer to as that energetic inner. Right, I've worked really hard on that. And what I found really challenging was being able to really name those emotions that I was feeling, because everything just came out as resentment. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Yeah, I just don't want to be doing any of this. It felt like bullshit. It really did. And you would leave the corporate space, and I would end up where I used to park the car, because I was based in Edinburgh. I would park it, and I would have about a 20-minute walk back to the car. And on that 20-minute walk, it was such a beautiful decompress. Yeah, I would take off my high heels. I would put on my little slipper toms, comfortable toms, to walk to the car. And I would just decompress on that route. And I actually used to keep makeup wipes in the car, because I used to show up as one version of Adele to the corporate office. Yeah, polished, always with a bright lipstick on. I would get into the car and I would remove the lipstick. I would take out the earrings. I would unclip my bra, because I'd be like, this thing has been just hellish.
I love that.
Right? I would be like, I am me now. I feel like me now. And I would put on a podcast or some form of something that would just calm my nervous system for the drive back home, which was always about half an hour to 40 minutes, depending on traffic.
Yeah, I think like you can only live out of an alignment for so long, when you can only not obviously it's not like necessarily faking it, but like if it doesn't feel true to you, and you are having to put on a bit of a persona or a bit of a different person, you can only do it for so long before it mentally and physically makes you feel ill.
Definitely. Now, probably from that point to where I am now, there was a few turning moments, few pointers. I actually got made redundant from that role as well. Now, at this point, I was not thinking that I was the common denominator, but equally, the type of human design that I am and the type of person that I am, I will not sit quiet when something doesn't sit right with me. So I had a very male-driven environment that I was in. All my upline was men. And I actually had a bit of a clash and a set to with my head of. And in a one-to-one session with him, this was like, it just makes me ick now to think that this is what happened. But there's a powerful part to this story. So in a one-to-one session with him, he booked this meeting room that we used to call the Goldfish Bowl, because it was literally a room made from all the walls were glass. Right. So it's like everybody could see in, and you could see everybody.
Your facial expressions, people walk by like that meeting's not going so well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I definitely hold my facial expressions are what I feel you see.
Yes.
That meeting didn't go very well. And I was actually told, Adele, I just want you to sit on your hands for the next 6 months and do as you're told.
Oh,
Oh, I know. I was just like, oh. So I stood up and I literally, probably from watching it from the outside, they'd all be like, oh my God, what is she doing? But I actually just said to him, this is not time and place for having this conversation. We will book another time in another meeting room and finish it then, and left the room. As I thought, I'm going to say something or do something that is
oh my
not
God,
professional.
don't, yes.
So left the room, went to my desk. I think his facial expression said more than mine. But I organized a meeting with him. I didn't let him take control. So I respect myself far too much to sit on my hands for 6 months and be told what to do.
Yeah.
I called him and I booked an executive office on the top floor. And I arrived 10 minutes early so that I could be there first. So when he came in, I invited him to take a seat. And then I just asked the question outright to say, do you want me to resign from this post? And I think the whole purpose in that was not about who has the level of authority, but it was about my own self-respect.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing for anybody, let alone a man, to have any type of pressure or hold over where I was, because at the end of the day, the choice was always mine to show up there every day.
Yeah.
So taking back my power felt amazing.
Yeah.
A few months later, I was made redundant. So, sometimes you've got to choose, right? But I knew that this was a possible outcome. I knew that I'd literally sealed my fate that day. But it was so important to me that I have my own self-respect, and I wasn't willing to let that be 6 months of sitting on my hands, being told what to do.
No, you would have
I was in a senior management position. This wasn't, and regardless of whatever position we are in, we always get to choose. Okay, we're not there to be subdued or pressured. So that again was a huge turning point for me. And basically what happened from that point, I'd been headhunted at the time I was being made redundant for another company. So it was great. I just kind of transitioned into another role. Everything was going great. But at that point, for a few years prior, I'd started to notice changes in my own body. Things just felt different. I was becoming really, really emotional. I wasn't sleeping great. I had a lot of vaginal changes. So dryness, soreness, discharge, smelliness. There was a lot of things that just were not normal.
Yeah.
And even the simplest of things, like being asked to pull together some reporting reporting basically on what we needed to do. I would sit and stare at a blank spreadsheet and think, I don't even know how to start this. Things that would be easy before became very difficult. So I actually started to lose a lot of confidence in myself and who I was. Became very teary and emotional over things that would never have been a bother before. So through that whole new role, I started it in the January. It would have been 2021. The January 21. And obviously we'd gone through the whole lockdown, working from home, which was a bit of a blessing. It meant that I could actually do more with my own passion piece from home. So in the January, took this new role on, knew that I wasn't actually really destined to stay there forever, but again, didn't know what my purpose was at that time. And went into a good few months of feeling really horrendous. So I actually, during that time of employment, I actually got confirmation that it was early perimenopause. I'd known from I was 35, I was 36 around about this time. And I actually started HRT when I was 37.
Okay, yeah.
I resigned from that corporate position, which I was actually really quite enjoying and was definitely set to go places within that company. But I resigned from it because I asked for some support whilst I was navigating my menopause symptoms. What I'd asked for was 6 weeks of reduced hours on a temporary basis so that I could get my HRT sorted and working and then pick back up the full time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that wasn't something that they could afford for me unless I took a demotion,
Okay. Yeah.
which is really sad.
Mm.
Really,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. As you're talking, I know so many women who say to me, I'm perimenopausal, or I'm going for the menopause, and my work, especially in male environments, workplaces, and they're saying that it's just zero support. No one understands.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the tough thing is, Elle, as well, is that we're probably the stats say 900,000 women have resigned in the UK from their positions because of menopause. It's a lot higher than that now, right? And they say 1 in 10 will resign because of menopause, but it's a lot higher than that. We just don't have the data of reporting
Mm.
because so many women will not even know that what they're experiencing is perimenopause or menopause symptoms. And we hear horrendous stories of women being dismissed because of their capability, of their skill set changing, of showing up late or missing meetings, and it's not through choice,
Mm.
right? It's all of these things start happening. So the stats are a lot greater than they actually are, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So I did resign from that position. Now, it was not an easy decision to make. I was really unwell. I really mentally and physically was really unwell with my menopause symptoms. And I was up, my family and I, Sean, the kids and I had taken a trip up to the north of Scotland to a lovely secluded cottage in the forest. And it
Yeah.
was just complete grounding and detachment. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no phone signal. Like if you wanted to do it, you had to drive for 10 minutes to the nearest village to pick up some kind of like 4G.
Mm.
It wasn't easy for us to then get back on the grid, but you
Mm.
could if you wanted it. We just chose not to. So that whole immersion over that weekend, I remember just chatting it through with my husband, who has been a massive support in all of this. And he sat up. We were both lying back on these like sun loungers, the height of the sun. And he just sat up and he said to me, Adele, you need to resign. You're made for more than this.
Mm.
And it just was like, as soon as he said it, I was like, holy shit.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So I made a pact there and then and said, if I go into work on Monday and their answer is anything other than, Adele, we are here to support you, what do you need?
Yeah.
I will resign there and then.
Yeah.
And I did.
And it was sit on your hands for 6 months.
And that for me was just this moment of, right, at the time, my business was very much now what I see as a sideline hobby.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
clients that I was working with, I gave them everything. But
Mm.
it meant that I was only working evenings and weekends for those
Yes.
clients. I was earning £1,300 a month
Mm.
from my business, which did not even touch the corporate salary that I was bringing in. So it was a really big risk decision that my husband and I made together to say, just walk away from it and we'll just make it work.
Yeah.
Right. If we have to contact the mortgage company and get like a stop put on the mortgage, if we have to, maybe ask our family to support with some grocery shopping for a while,
Mm.
we'll do it. We have to sell a car, we'll do it. If we have to sell
Yeah.
a house, we'll
Yes.
do it. Right. And that for us was like that whole piece of, do you know what? That is all just material stuff.
Yeah.
We can make this work on Sean's wage alone, but
Yeah.
yeah, we won't have the current lifestyle we have, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And do you know what happened?
Yeah.
My business excelled so vastly that
Yeah.
within 10 months, I'd hit 6 figures. And
Wow.
that for me was all about, I'm all in. I'm so committed. I
Yeah.
found my purpose and my passion, and I now know where I'm going. And it will be
Wow.
2 years on the 25th of June this year that I'll have been self-employed.
Oh wow. Gosh.
So it's been
Yes, it's been a very fast for you then. Like that's literally short of 2 years and you've been that successful. That's amazing.
but then I know now that this is where I'm meant to be. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's not a job. Yes, sometimes it's work, right? I still have to show up and do do the crappy things like the accountancy and the bits
Oh,
I really don't enjoy.
yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's like eating that frog when it comes to like accountancy day. And I'm just like, oh, I need to do a breath work before I do this, and light a candle and tell myself that this is love. And then yeah, we'll get it done.
Yeah, that's it. For me, it's the administration. I
Yeah.
literally will be like, oh, is there anyone that is better that I can pass this on to? Because you do end up having to do everything, don't you? You're trained in I don't, whatever it is, like disordered eating or the menopause, but then you actually end up being like everything, the IT, the
Yeah.
HR, the legal, until you can get to a place where obviously you can pass that on. But that's amazing. You must just feel so like in alignment now.
So in alignment, it's ridiculously, it's ridiculously like the energy, the vibration, the connection, like the peace to self. When I said that at the time I wasn't as emotionally intelligent as I am now, I didn't have the capability or capacity to understand what that even meant. But in taking my own journey, and I'm huge, you know this as well, but I'm huge on self-care. It's a non-negotiable every single day.
Yes.
And I started my day this morning, I gifted myself a lie-in because my my diary allowed for it, but equally because I had such a disrupted sleep last night. I woke one of the symptoms that I still suffer from in my menopause is that I can have a lot of anxiety that will overwhelm me at the most ridiculous times.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I did not feel anxious at all.
Mm.
By the time I got into bed, my husband's away on business at the moment. So it's just me and the girls. And I start to then have these really irrational thoughts of what if someone tries to break in while
Oh
Sean's
yeah.
not here? They're going
Oh.
to get to the girls' room before they get to
Oh,
mine. Maybe I should
so
go
yeah.
swap and go into the spare room so that I'm
Yeah.
the first room they come into. So all these things go through my head when I'm probably overtired because I've
Yes.
been solo parenting, running the house, running the business, yeah, doing the laundry so the girls have got fresh pants.
It's the overtired, isn't it? And I think that is such a catalyst for anyone that experiences any sort of like health conditions. Like you can almost pinpoint that it's going to flare up when you're tired. Like for
Yeah.
eating disorders, body dysmorphia, if you're tired,
Yes.
like it's gonna be loud.
Oh my God. And you can't, you're so irrational with it that nothing that you can do other than the best thing. So I'm a massive advocate of practicing what I preach and preaching what I practice.
Yeah.
I ended up gifting myself a breath work session and reaffirming. So those affirmations of I am safe, we are safe, the house is locked, no
Yeah.
one can get in, we have beautiful neighbors nearby that will hear me scream. So, it's all these things where it's like, I'm fine, I'm safe, everything's locked. And reaffirming that settled me enough to get sleep. But
Mm.
I woke this morning feeling very jaded. So I afforded a little bit extra time just resting in bed. And then when I woke up, I did a really um, deep, proper breath meditation. And then
Yeah.
I started client work and it felt really abundant.
Yeah. And you come at it from such a different place, don't you? Rather than
Yeah.
tired, because your mindset, you want to go into your client calls as in like, I can't wait for this client call, as opposed to just get through this and then like maybe have a little lie down, or you have to put yourself first. And I guess as well with your clients with nutrition and menopause and all of that, it very much is encouraging them to also take
Yeah.
that self-care. Like if you're going through menopause, self-care is like number one.
Massive. It's massive. And this is where, when I designed out the reclamation formula, there's 3 steps to this. Okay. And purposefully, the 3 steps, because the human brain can retain 3 pieces of information quite easily in one go. Okay. If we had 5 steps or 6 steps, it's too overwhelming. So the 3 steps, nutrition is one of them. Of course it is, right? We want to nurture our body and our being. Lifestyle is a second part to it, where we get to really show up in, are we living our best life? Not about just doing the exercise. It's about, well, what are the other things that we can do that really stand in your truth?
Yeah.
Yeah, that purpose pathway. And being an educated and trained positive psychology coach,
Yeah.
that's positive psychology in the lifestyle pillar. And then the third one is mind. And this is probably really relevant to what we've talked about, because our mind and our mindset are hugely important. Our brain controls our body, our thoughts, our emotions, our hormones, everything.
Everything.
Everything. It signals, when we have a menstrual bleed, we bleed from, not bleed from the brain, that sounds horrendous,
Yes.
but we are signaled, our ovaries are signaled from the brain, and the brain controls it. The brain is like, right, it's time to have your menstrual bleed. So off you
Yeah.
go. And away the ovaries go, and we bleed.
Yeah.
So we have to work on our mindset and our mind pillar.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I say, and I say this all the time, but me getting over my 17 years of eating disorder, I would put most of that down to my mindset and my mind and my programming,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, which is different for everyone, but as opposed to the kind of like trauma work and the
Yeah.
counseling. It's very much like changing the way I think all the time.
Yes, and we have to show up for ourselves every single day. And you know what? It's not in that false or toxic positivity sense. It's more about, how do I feel today? Yeah, there's a beautiful body scan that I do with my ladies.
Oh,
And anybody can do this. There's a very quick version of it where I would encourage you just to either be seated or standing with your feet planted. So the soles of your feet are firmly on the ground, no
mm,
cross-legged, firmly on the ground. And you want to start at the underneath of your soles of your feet. And you want to just ask yourself the question, focusing on the soles of my feet, what do I feel right now?
mm,
Okay. And then we just walk up over. So we visualize this coming up and over our feet and
yeah,
spiraling then around our calf muscles, up around our quads, our bum, our belly, all the way up to our head. And we ask ourselves the same question, what do I feel in this space? And if we notice that we've got tension or an ache or a pain, or actually, oh, my heart feels really full, like I feel really happy,
yeah,
we get to name where we are. And that gives us a really, really beautiful 30-second moment of connection to self.
yeah, amazing. That sounds lovely. I think I need that today.
Yeah, so powerful.
Oh, amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Your journey is going to seriously inspire so many people. And also, I feel like we could talk forever a bit more about menopause. So maybe we'll have to do another one very much on menopause. But if people have questions, they know where to find you. Your Instagram, I'll drop it in the show notes. But what's your Instagram again?
The menopause coach.
Perfect. It'll all be in the show notes as well. But thank you so much. You've been such a pleasure to chat to.
Oh, you're super welcome. I love it. Nobody has ever asked me to take my story as far back as that. So it's quite
Um,
intriguing when you actually get to relive it, because we don't spend enough time
I
thinking
think it's
back about
that's
ourselves.
fascinating. Every time I'm people watching, I don't think what are they doing right now. I think what happened when they were young, even if it's all positive. Like, what is
Yeah.
their journey? I love it.
Yeah.
Thank
Where have you been?
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
You're super welcome.
Bye.